I'm out with etrailer. Today we're going to be talking about a WaySafe weight distribution hitch. Now what's nice about a weight distribution is once you start getting into those extra large trailers with some heavy loads on them, being able to help level your trailer back out, it's going to help a lot. Because what it's basically doing is redistributing that weight right there in the tongue so you don't get as much sag. And when you don't have as much sag, you get a lot more control because your trailer is going to be less likely of swaying. And then on top of that, typically with that much sag, the front end of your vehicle is going to lift up a bit. So when we level everything out, we're going to have more control on the front end, and we don't have as much squatting back here either. So it's going to be safer for you, and it's just going to make your ride quality more comfortable. Now, one of the major things that separates the WaySafe weight distribution is going to be that it has a scale put in place. So this is great for a few reasons. It's great if you have a trailer with varying loads on it. This is going to help you monitor what it's at so you can more accurately get the right type of tension you need out of this. Or if you are new to weight distribution, because all of this can be a lot at first, and this is going to take out a lot of that guesswork. Now, a few other things I like about this one compared to some of the other ones out there is this is going to be a 4-point system, and a lot of 4-point systems rely on friction. This is going to be relatively quiet when you compare it to those other systems that rely on that. So your ride quality is going to be pretty pleasant. And then on top of that, setting this up is relatively easy. So you'll notice with the scale, it's going to go from 0 all the way up to 5,000 pounds. And what it's really referring to is the tension under load that we have here. So it's not going to be the direct tongue weight we're getting. And we'll understand that a little bit more once we start talking about the app that you can get with this. And it's just important that you just check what your vehicle, your hitch, and the coupler of your trailer and the trailer itself is rated for, so you don't damage anything. Now, speaking of that coupler, this is going to have a 2 5/16 ball, so this is going to work with most trailers out there of this size. Now, speaking of different options for this, right here we're going to have this that's going to have a 8-inch drop to it. You can get different drops or rises if need be to match you and your setup. And speaking of which, another thing that you can mix and match with is going to be the receiver size. So this shank is going to be for 2.5-inch hitches. If you have a 2-inch hitch, we are going to have some available for that too. We are going to have a locking pin that comes with this, so you can make sure no one's going to come by and take your weight distribution. Now let's talk about how it's going to connect to your trailer besides that coupler. So we're going to have our arms that come out on either side, a pin that holds it in place over there, and then a bracket on this side. And what's unique about this, like I said earlier, typically with this style, it relies on friction to help control everything. And with this, we still don't get a lot of noise when we compare to other options out there. So that's really impressive. But what's also nice about this is going to be a bolt-on application, so we don't have to do any drilling on here. It's relatively pretty quick and easy to throw it onto your trailer. We just need to make sure we have the space to do that. And it is going to give you a range from 27 to 32 inches of a spot to put it on the frame. And these clamps are going to be compatible with certain frame sizes. So this is going to be compatible with anything that's going to be 6 inches. Now, if you have an 8-inch frame though, there is going to be an option to get a different bracket so you can make it work. Something else we're going to be talking about is going to be the app. I know a lot of people aren't too crazy about adding another app to your phone, but this really does make the whole process a lot simpler. So when you're looking at it initially, yeah, there's a lot of numbers, things on here, but if we just start at the very beginning, just put in your vehicle's information, hitch information, trailer information. You just put it how much your current tongue weight is. You put in some information that the app's going to want to know. It gets us what we need to tighten this down to, what that foot-pound needs to be, that I showed you earlier, and bam, we're good to go. So it is a pretty simple process that we'll talk a little bit more in detail when we get to the installation process. If you do decide to go with this, there's a few things you should probably keep in mind. So this is going to sit out a little bit further than a regular hitch. If your connections were a little bit tight, like your safety chains or your wiring, you might want to look at some extensions because this is going to sit a little bit further back. Another thing is we like to use our jack here to make this installation process a lot simpler to do. You will get a pry bar that comes with it, but there's going to be a lot of tension on here. So when you lift that jack up, it's going to make lining up these bars with this bracket much easier. So I'd recommend checking out some 5,000 pound jack if you don't have one already. It's going to work for most applications, but today we do have a 3,500 one, so even that can work too. And then something, if you're looking for ride quality, would be some airbags. Airbags, you can really play with the PSI some, so you can get this to be more fine-tuned for a ride experience that you want. So we're about to do our driving test now, and we actually have a special guest to help us talk about this experience, since this is going to be his truck and trailer combination, so he can talk a little bit more to it. So Bob, you've had your hands on a bunch of different weight distribution hitches. How is the setup process for this one compared to the other ones you've had your hands on?
So I like the setup process on this one because you can dial in your tongue weight to be exactly right. On the other ones, you kind of gotta, take bolts apart, put it back together, and kind of guess what's the next spot that'll be better. Mm-hmm. With this one, you can find that smooth ride by actually using that bolt to adjust the pressure in the spring bars. It makes it super easy, and then when it's set up, it gives you that good ride. Now, it's not that the other ones are bad. You can get them there, and you can make it a really good ride, but it's just a lot harder to get it set up. So this one's like the easiest out-of-the-box solution that I've come across.
Oh yeah, like handling it so far, it felt pretty easy just to set up for the first time. Now, since we're on the road, how's it feeling so far? Like making your turns, just driving regularly?
Yeah, it feels great. So far, so good. No excessive bounce in the back. You've got a big trailer back there. You can tell it's there, but the truck's riding just as good as it does without any trailer back there or weight distribution as far as ride quality. When you hit a good bump, there's a little bit of bounce. There's always going to be that because there's a lot of tongue weight back there. You can mitigate that a little bit if you also have some sort of suspension enhancement.
Yeah.
So like I've got airbags, so right now we're at 5 pounds of air, and that's not doing anything basically with this setup on here. But if we go up to somewhere between 25 and 35, then that's going to be the sweet spot where it takes more of that bounce out from having that heavy tongue weight.
Definitely. All right, and really like one of the big things people talk about with a 4-point system is the noise that comes with it. So far I've been in here, I haven't heard it too much, maybe a couple times so far. Wasn't that loud?
No, it's this system is not that loud. One thing you got to remember, it's steel on steel is your best friction material. So that's really kind of sticky, and when you first get this, it's not steel on steel. It's kind of paint on paint for a little bit because everything's powder coated, so it comes to you nice and not rusted or anything like that. And so once that paint wears away and you're steel on steel, it's going to perform a little better, and you're not going to have as much popping and noise. But you'll always have some noise and popping with a square bar that's on a platform like that. Your chains obviously will pop once in a while, but not near as much. Also, hooking up, like they give you that little tip-up bar to help put your brackets on. I tend to not use that at all. I hook the truck up to the trailer and then lift the truck and the trailer with the jack on the trailer. Yeah. And then get it to where I can just put the spring bar on those brackets by hand. Makes setup a lot easier, and then you're not trying to, and the same way coming off. Get it up high enough, there'll be no tension in those spring bars, and you can pull them off easily. So that's one thing that a lot of people don't know when they first get started using weight distribution. They learn over time. It's better if you know it right up front.
Oh, and with that, when you are using a jack, do you recommend like a certain size jack for that process?
Really, on a trail, it depends on your trailer weight, right?
Yeah.
But on most travel trailers that are bumper pull, you can get away with anything between 3,500 and 5,000 pounds. It's going to do a fine job. The one thing I would recommend with any jack is a drop leg.
A drop
so that
leg,
you're
okay.
not constantly using a big wooden block to get it up high enough.
Yeah.
And like if you go with the etrailer 5,000-pound one, you're going to be good with just about any travel trailer out there, and it's got a drop leg included with it.
I know you mentioned using this with airbags, and we can actually test that out now, right?
Yeah, I've got the back brake airbags here, so you know, as we were going along before, we had some of that porpoising bounce at the back of the truck. So if you use some sort of suspension enhancement, you can help that a lot. So in this case, we've got the back brake airbags on here, and I'm going to go to what I know for this particular trailer's tongue weight is about right, which is 35 psi. So wireless system, so just press 35, it'll go up to that. And then when we drive, you'll be able to feel a marked difference in how much it bounces.
Yeah, awesome. Excited to see what it feels like.
Yep. So right off the bat on the concrete road, like it's totally different than without the air in the bags.
Because I know initially I'd kind of feel like it was almost like a reverb, but you said porpoising. I'm not feeling that so far right now at all, really.
Yeah, if we leave the air out, it'll be much, like it's still there some, like especially on bigger bumps. Mm-hmm. But if you let the air out, it's much more. And the weight distribution really can't solve all of that.
Yes.
So when you want the best ride possible, an additional suspension enhancement is good. And then really the one that you can adjust infinitely, like airbags, is one that makes it, you know, where you can get it to where you want it and make it super comfortable.
And especially if you're on like those longer drives, you have your camper, you're going cross country, I could see that kind of like that reverb or those bouncing getting pretty annoying after maybe the first 100 or so miles.
Yeah, on the highway, like there's a Wallace State Park in St. Joe, Missouri, or close to St. Joe, Missouri. We go there. It's about a 5-hour trip with the camper. Without the airbags, it's kind of like, you know, it's always bouncing. The highway is not great in a lot of places. With the airbags, it makes it kind of a sit back, relax, one hand on the steering wheel, feel pretty okay when you get there. You don't feel like you need to go take a nap.
I definitely can feel that, yeah. We can jump into the installation. I will say I'd recommend finding a level surface and chalking up your trailer so you can do this accurately and safely. So the first thing we're going to be doing is just making sure we get this installed into our hitch. You won't be like any other type of ball mount out there. Once you got that pinned into place, then we can come back over here. I'm going to lift my trailer up just a little bit so we can connect this and I can check the weight. Now I'll be able to take this number here, and like that app I was talking about earlier, I'll be able to download that if you haven't already, and we can input that number into the app. This is what the app's going to look like once you actually get there. So right here, it's going to say actual tongue weight. I'm just going to put in 650. That's what it looks like, roughly what we have right now. Now I've uncoupled, and what I'm going to do over here is make sure everything is level. That's why we want to have this on flat, level surface. So what I'm going to do is grab a level here, place it there. I can tell it's a little bit off, and lower this down. I'd also recommend just going by with a tape measure, measuring on the front of the frame and the back of the frame to make sure it's the same measurement. Now that our trailer is relatively level, we're going to come back through and get a measurement. What we're going to get a measurement of is going to be the top of that coupler, and that's going to be around 19 inches for us today. And what I want to make sure is the top of the ball on your ball mount is going to be around an inch higher than this. So kind of roughly like this. So where we're sitting at right now, I'm at 18 inches for this. So this is going to have to go up some. The way we're going to do that is we're going to remove these bolts that hold it in place right here. and go up by one hole. Secure this back down. Double check my measurement. And we're looking pretty good there. And then we're just going to come back through and secure these down with a flat washer, a split washer, then your nut. And then once you get them hand tight, we'll come back through and torque them down the spec. That's, you're going to have a label on here that'll let you know what to torque it down to. Now this is going to be a good point where we can put our brackets on. I'll talk about that process in a second. But let me show you how to get that measurement of where they're going to go. So we're going to measure from the center of your coupler to about right over here. I'm going to go about to 32 inches. Typically that would be the max range I'd recommend going to, but there's going to be some brackets that hold up our batteries. So what I'm going to do instead is find a point that's going to be able to avoid those brackets. So I already have a marker right here, and this is going to be just under 29 inches for my case today. So again, make sure you have a paint marker, mark that out, and then we can grab that bracket and line it up to the center of that. You're going to want both sides to be at that same distance. And essentially, I've already got the whole system put together, but I'll remove some of it so we can kind of break it down from the beginning. So when we're starting off, I recommend having a carriage bolt through here, one of your longer ones, and having a split washer and a nut there. I'm just going to extend that out. I'm going to remove the one on the bottom completely. And we're just going to put it right over here. You notice the orientation to have this? There's going to be a big gap, and we want the grouping of those square holes together on the bottom. So I'm going to just stick that through here, making sure that's lined up. Then we're going to grab this carriage bolt, slide it through the one that's closest to your frame. In my case, it's the bottom one here, but if you had two opening, then you'd go with this one instead. I'm going to push that through and connect it to the other side. In my case right now, this top one's a little bit tight, so I'll just loosen that up some. There we have it. I'm going to make sure it's relatively straight. Then I'm going to put this split washer and then nut on the back side. Then I'm going to grab this other bracket. Just make sure this is pretty snug on there. And then the way we're going to put this on is I'll just roughly put it in place for the time being. Oh, that's my hole. If you don't get this lined up, it won't hold in place. Now it is. Essentially, what we want to do is, I'll take this piece right out of here so it's a little more clear. We want to measure from the top of this bracket here to the top of where your coupler is sitting. In my case, the top of my coupler is lined up with the top of my frame. Just double check yours. And we want there to be a 9-inch difference here. You can tell mine's a little bit lower than I want it to be. So I'm just going to raise it up by 1 and then double check it there. There we have it. Double check one more time. And we're pretty close. So that should do it. We'll put our carriage bolts back into place and then put a split washer and a nut on them. And there are going to be torque settings on this bracket here. It's going to be at the bottom. You'll just torque these down to the specs. We can come over here now and grab these bars. And the way you're going to do it is, you see that cutout there? We're mainly going to be lining up these holes on the side though, with the holes on the side here. So just stick it right in. Already done this on the other side. And then sometimes when you have the newer one, you might have some burrs in here, so you might have to break those up some. This one we've used a couple times now, so it should slide right into place. I recommend doing this from the outside in, because if you do the reverse way, if these are kind of pulled in pretty tight, they're going to be really hard to remove. So try to keep it on the outside. And then from here, we'll push this out a little bit and then couple up to our trailer. Now that we're coupled up, I got all the weight on the ball mount now. Make sure it locks into place, and we put a pin in it. From here, we're going to get a couple measurements. You're going to have a couple measurements in your instructions, so we're going to get one where we adjust this bar. It's going to be pretty stiff when you first get it. You want to make sure this is around about 90 degree with the ball mount, kind of in this orientation I have it now. And then I'm going to measure from the front of this bar right here for all my measurements today. So we're going to go from that bar to the center of our rear axle on the truck. So now today I'm getting 57 inches for my setup. Then I'm going to go front of that bar again to about the center of that bracket. That's going to be pretty close to 27 inches. And then we're going to do one more. And you might need to get a friend for this one. I might today. We're going to go from that bar to the center of our axles over here. So this is going to depend if you have a single axle. If you have a single axle, you're going to go from the center of the hub. If you have a dual axle like I have today, I'm going to go in between those two tires. Now just keep those measurements. We're going to use them here in a second. Before we do that, we need to put these bars on here, on this bracket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this pin out of our way just for the moment. And if I try to lift it up, one, this is pretty stiff. It's kind of hard to move, but I can't get it up there. Now we do have this tool and we could use it here, but instead of that, I'm going to use my jack. And this, I do recommend a 5,000-pound jack. And you're going to notice this bar is going to start going higher and above that bracket. Right about there is probably going to do. And let's say your jack gets fully extended, but you're still not going to clear this bracket yet, then you could use this tool. All you'd have to do is have the end of this go into that hole where we took the pin out of the bracket, put it underneath here, and lift up and push it into place, just like that. Now I don't have to do that today because I should be able just to lift it up, push it inwards, put this pin back into place with that clip. We're going to do the same thing for the other side, and then lower this back down. So I lowered my jack back down so all the weight is back on our ball mount. And we can go over the app now. So when you open it up and you get through all the menus of like agreeing to the terms and services, we'll get to this point here. It's going to ask you to put in your vehicle's information. So you can put that in a couple different ways. Once that's put in your trailer's information. So we want to put our GVWR. That's the biggest number, the most important one we want to put into place. And then we're going to put in our hitch information, which in our case today is going to be the true toe middle weight. Once that's all put in place, that number we originally got of the tongue weight scale, if you had already put that in here, it might clear once all three of these go into place, and you might get a red upside down thumb. If you just put that in, all three of these should have 3 green lights. If you do, you're on the right track. Now, what we're going to do here is put in a couple more things. So we need to let it know we're in the drop position. If you're in the rise position, put it there. And then we want to make sure we're showing how many holes are visible. That's going to be 5 holes, in our case today, that are above my highest bolt on there. Once all that information is put in place, then it's going to opt in to calculate. The way I calculated earlier, it asked me for those 3 measurements we had. So make sure you had written those down, put them into place, and right now I have this number. So I'm going to tighten this down to 1,700 pounds. The way you do that is by coming over here, and here's a closer look at those 5 holes right here. Now, to tighten this up, we're going to take our tool, and if we need to raise that foot-pound, which we're probably going to have to in our case today, we're going to use this hole at the very end of it and go clockwise. And as you're doing this, you're probably going to want to jostle this around a little bit so it doesn't get caught up anywhere. Now what I like to do though is just grab a socket and wrench to do this instead, because it's going to be a lot quicker and it's not going to take up as much space. Now we're going to grab a torque wrench and we're going to come over to this little nut here. It's going to be right next to your scale. We're going to tighten this down to the torque setting it has listed here. So I'll get this nice and tight till we hear that beep. Then we should be mostly good. And the last thing really to do is just make sure you make all your connections, your safety chains are hooked up, your breakaway switch is connected, and then that'll pretty much do it for a look at some of the features and the installation of the Weight Weight Distribution Hitch. If you guys have any other questions, let us know here at eTrailer. And again, I'm Matt, and thanks for watching.